I'm Allison Graham, which you probably know because it probably says live somewhere, Allison Graham. And today we are unpacking this book called Can't Hurt Me. Now, I read this book last week and I did a lot of highlighting in it, and I was just going through a few of the key points. If you have read this book, I want to know if you can throw that in the chat box. Let me know as people are coming into the live with me here. That is awesome. And so here's the thing. I read this book and I loved it. Well, at first I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I could read it. Maybe I'm back. I might be back. I think I'm back. I hope I'm live. It's good. Okay. So it said stop. Okay. So at first, this book, I was like, I don't even know if I can read it because it was so intense. This guy has had a childhood that unfortunately many people have, I think, gone through or experienced. And he's very graphic about it. And it's very, just if you've been abused as a child or anything like that, it definitely shows up in this book. So that is tough. I also didn't know it was mainly a storybook. So sometimes when you get into books, like the first couple chapters or give me the basis of your thinking and then the rest is like the meat. Didn't happen in here. The whole thing's a story with a little page of challenge at the end of each of the chapters. So once I figured out, oh, we're not getting to the meat, I was like, oh, okay, that's all right, because it's woven in. But this guy has run ultra marathons, I think like 69 in his life. Like, we're talking toenails falling off, running on broken legs that are duct taped, lost 100 and some pounds in 3 months in order to qualify for the Navy SEALs. Like, did some stuff that I have zero desire to do. And also, though, can admire and be like, all right. But there is a fundamental principle that he talks about throughout the book that just makes me want to cringe. Is that what cringing looks like? I think cringe is like, but this is more like, because he talks about being mentally tough, and his entire being until the last chapter or say and a half is basically mental toughness and operating from a place of anger and aggression. And it's a very masculine energy. I mean, we all have that, both sides, like when you've got to step up and when you've got to soften, like that's fair. But he does it to the absolute extreme. And I used to be a mental toughness person. However, my mental toughness version showed up like this. Actually, he said it. I quoted some of his quotes, so it would have shown up very similarly. Let me go to page 73 and read you a quote, if I will. If you have little ones around, please put on a headset for this next moment. He says, if you look in the mirror and see someone who is obviously overweight, that means you're fucking fat. Own it. It's okay to be unkind with yourself in these moments because we need thicker skin to improve in life. And therein lies the problem. I don't think we need to call ourselves awful things. I don't think we need to hate on ourselves. It seems like your stream is having connection issues. Stand by. We're trying to restore. Oh, I hope you're connecting because this is going to be on page. All right. Well, you know what I'll do if it didn't work on the streaming? The internet's kind of been wonky today. Hopefully the 5G's coming soon next week. And I'll upload the native file. So sorry about that. It's the beauty of living in the rural of Ontario. Okay. So here's the thing. If we live our lives and we're ruled by hatred towards someone, so for him, it was hatred towards his father and his brother, and it was hatred towards the world and saw everything as anger, but it fueled him. It fueled him, like I said, to run on broken legs that were tied up with duct tape for, 100 miles. It fueled him to get through Hell Week for the SEALs 3 times. I think the rest of us are treating ourselves with the level of, or like I used to, so I'm not going to say I'm not going to talk at the present moment, but I think many people are now, are fueling themselves with the same level of anger and hate and, just aggression that he's using to run through Hell Week 3 times. However, you're not actually in Hell Week. You're going to the office. See how that's screwed up there? And my concern with people who talk about mental toughness and like, don't back down from yourself, and don't just, if you're fat, look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself you're fucking fat, using his words here, and do something about it. And the problem with it for me is that I think you're losing an opportunity to have grace with yourself and to have a chance to embrace and love yourself despite all of your flaws. And now I'm not I totally agree with this next line I found here. It says, not all physical and mental limitations are real. I agree with that. So I'm not saying be soft. I'm not saying go, oh, well, that's just the way it is. I'm not going to do anything. Oh, it's all their fault, right? Like, I'm not saying that, because that's not helpful either, which is why I believe in what I refer to as mental discipline. Okay, good. I'm so glad. Thank you, Greg, for letting me know that there are no connection issues. Picking you up live and clear here on YouTube and LinkedIn. Oh, it's great. You got like multiple screens for Allie, eh? That's awesome. So, but have you ever done that? Like, you're really hard on yourself. And in my one book, I call it The Internal Messenger of Bullshit, where we just make up these stories that are so negative. Like, if we talk to our neighbors the way we talk to ourselves, like our neighbors would move, right? Or our friends, like we could never do that. Could never do that. And yet, this is how a lot of people are operating. So he used it, the anger, and I just want you to look at what's fueling you. Is it anger, or is it a desire to continue to grow while accepting and having grace with yourself and your circumstances? Because if we're fueled, if it's our underlining primary emotion that drives how we show up every day, then we're going to have more contentious interactions. We are going to think that the least of other people, right? We're going to think, oh, he's up to something, or he meant this thing. If it can be interpreted, like if there's an email that we need to read, it could be, if our underlying emotion that is driving us is anger and the sense of mental toughness, everything is a fight. Everything about how we show up every day is a fight. If we come from a place of mental discipline, we can take that fight and we can be in a fight, but it doesn't drive us. It's not how we see the world. Like, if we see the world from a place of anger all the time, like that tree is just something waiting to fall. Right? Like, what a shame. What a shame that we would look around this world driven from that. And here's the beauty. At the end of this book, his body basically shuts down. He's gone, he is pushed too hard. He cannot get out of bed. He thinks he's dying. And I hate to give you a spoiler alert here, but the thing that actually saves his life, this man who has run 69, I think he's at when he published this anyway. this man who's done a lot of stuff, stretching saved this man's life. And now he's in better shape. He can run the ultra marathons because he has the both sides of the equation, the yin, the yang, the suffering and the grace. And so I just am concerned for humanity that many, many people are walking through their lives based on this mental toughness model, coming from a place of, and they don't have the other side, which is the grace that says, you know what, I'm okay the way I am too. And so this balance is so incredibly critical. And so that was my frustration. But then at the end, he's like, yeah, I pushed hard, but I've been through 2 divorces. I have really strained relationships. I actually doesn't have a lot of friends, although he has a lot of people at the end who he acknowledges in a beautiful way. And he talks about, but it's not the external voice that will break you down. It's what you're telling yourself that matters. But see, if people don't have the discipline or the obsession with reading that I have this summer, and am committed to getting to the end of a book, you would actually read, so there are 302 pages in this book. He doesn't start talking about the grace and the humility of not powering through and of failure and how, you know, all of that until, like, I'm going to say at least page 310. So anything that you read in this book up until this point is, oh, shoot, I need to step up my game. And you do, by the way, we all do. I believe his theory that we're only 40% tapped into 40% of our capabilities and we can push further, 100% true. And I'm challenging myself that on every day, right? Like, I'm really exhausted. Are you? Yes, I am. And could you push a little bit more before you have to take a break? Okay. Totally good. I love that philosophy. But he's doing it in such a way that is so, like, you suck if you're not putting duct tape on your broken legs and running through the marsh. That if you only read this, which most people only read a little bit of a book, right? They don't read the whole thing. Like, you're going to miss the gold, which is back here. It's fascinating. So, because if I only read the last chapter, I'd be like, oh my God, this guy and I were like kindred spirits. Because he's like, you need to have both. My people given in the field. Yeah. Like, it just, achieving goals or overcoming obstacles doesn't have to be fun. That's true. And as a whole, we don't want to spend our lives pushing towards something that is not fun and not enjoying our lives, right? So anyway, I loved it. I thought it was really great. Let me just see a couple other things here. Some good points early on in the book, though, like, not the goal is not to change make huge substantial changes at once. And I talk a lot about this as well, right? We want to change the needle just a little bit at a time, chip away one issue. Let's just little steps until a year from now, it's no longer even an issue, as opposed to trying to like go, oh, I'm never going to have a carb again in my life. And, you know, then lasting 4 days. Okay. So I'm curious about your opinion on mental toughness versus my idea of mental discipline. So you still push yourself, you don't cave, but you also recognize the positive side. And you don't live from a place of anger. You know, I love this question though. What am I capable of? Like, are we truly living our full capacity? Absolutely not. We habitually settle for less than our best at work, in school, in our relationships, or on the playing field or race course. We settle as individuals, and we teach our children to settle for less than their best. And okay, yes. And if we're striving every day, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not operating at my best. Like, I lived that life. I lived it. I had deserves to hit the pillow on my Post-it note. And if I didn't feel that I had contributed enough to the world in that day, I wouldn't go to bed. I would go do something. Right? Like, it was this constant grind and push. And I think that true joy and happiness is found when we soften that a bit, and we offer the grit to go with the grit. Yeah. So there's my thinking. Incredible book. But if you're going to read it, I implore you, read to the end. When he's like, when I finally got to, okay, so here's something I wrote in the margin. I wrote the problem. So let's find out what I was thinking. Thanks to all that stretching, I'm in better shape at 43 than I was in my 20s. Back then, I was always sick, wound tight, and stressed out. I never analyzed why I kept getting stress fractures. I just taped that shit up. No matter what ailed my body or my mind, I had the same solution. Tape it up and move the F on. Now I'm smarter than I've ever been, and I'm still getting after it. And so this is on page 354, where he says and acknowledges the push was actually killing him. Like, isn't that fascinating? Now, on the other side, because we got to have both sides. I hope that right now you are nose to concrete with your own bullshit limits you don't even know were there. I hope you're willing to do the work to break them down. I hope you're willing to change. You'll feel pain, but if you accept it, endure it, and callous your mind, you'll reach a point where not even pain can hurt you. There is a catch, however. When you live this way, there is no end to it. See? And that's where the flip happens. And so I'm trying to find that balance of how do you callous your mind and be tough and go after what you want and not sell yourself short and step into your true brilliance and do all of that, while not coming from a place of anger and feeling like you're never going to be good enough and never ending up on this thing. And you're always searching for the future, which is robbing you of the joy in the present. And there's got to be a way. Like, I know living my capacity. Heck, I just had a beautiful phone call from someone who no less told me that. Said, you've got to reach people. You've got magic to offer. And you're playing small. And I'm like, I don't know what else to do. I don't know how else to play the game. I just show up. And so she's like, well, you could do this and this. And I'm like, okay, those are good ideas. But to that point, I think, I don't even know how long I've been on for a while, but I hope you've got some value out of this. I hope you felt like if you're driven from angry, just to consider what that may or may not feel like. And if it feels good, go for it, great. But if it feels like you're duct taping up broken shin splints, or I guess shin splints aren't broken, but if you're, taping up broken bones to keep going, I feel like when you get to the end of your life, are you going to be happy that you did that? I don't know. Maybe you will. Let's see this. I think it's interesting that, like your description of a book, we accept or judge ourselves and others based on our intro or summary, as in the highlight reel we see and share on social media. Perhaps we can better honor or know the journey. Okay, hold on, I'm going to come over here. I'll read the rest because it doesn't show up. Perhaps we can better honor or know the journey as opposed to the bookends. No more chasing the horizon. Oh, I love that. Chasing the horizon. And we know what happens with that. You never actually reach the horizon. So how do we fall in love with the journey and relish in the rewards? How do we push ourselves to do more in the journey without judging ourselves that we're not enough? I think there's enough feeling just as part of the human experience that we aren't enough. And so when we add in mental toughness and a sense of anger, if you don't do this, you're weak, something is wrong with you, and we add that on to our already vulnerable part of the human experience, which has us saying that we're actually not enough, or feeling that we have the imposter syndrome, or that, you know, other people are better, and constantly comparing ourselves, I think we've just made life even harder than it needs to be. Now, the reason I do this work is because I believe people are fundamentally causing themselves destructive stress and a lack of enjoyment in their lives unnecessarily. And I want to push you to change that, to challenge that. Perhaps choose a better way, so you can be totally at peace and joy despite the shit show that's happening around you. Goodness knows that never ends. All right, we've got another comment here. I suspect that as we grow older, the moments we look back on are all about the journey and not the outcome. This is likely also where we influence and empower others. So true. So true. And because the journey makes up a lot more of it, right, of our lives, because the moments, and we've all done this, at least I know I have, and you can tell me if you have as well, but you've worked for a goal, it happens, and then you're like, like, okay, yeah, I did that. And then you like go to sleep and wake up the next morning and you're on to the next thing. It can feel like you're never satisfied. Okay, we've got Amanda coming in here. I am working on compassion with my current state in order to move forward. Awesome. Yeah, you deserve compassion. You're working very hard. You've got incredible, you know, like everybody has this, you know, the shit show going on around them. I don't know for you, Amanda, but I know that it's compassion, right? Like compassion with yourself. And I think that that's the thing that mental toughness in its traditional sense eliminates. Because in actual fact, the very essence of mental toughness is to delete any inkling of compassion. And so all we end up doing is beating ourselves up. And most of us have enough shit going on in our lives that we can allow the world to beat us up. Like, why are we throwing extra punches into our lives? I don't know. I used to do it like crazy. Like, I mean, I you know, goodness gracious. I mean, dealing with criticism online or whatever, or, you know, a client or something like, or someone who didn't like me or whatever, was just part of life. But the worst part, the part that I made harder, was for every, you know, what is this? Wait, okay. How would you do this? Jab, cross. That's how it works. Jab, cross, hook, right? So for every jab and a cross that every person put on me, I'd add in like 10 hooks, right? Like maybe I'm working on a metaphor that's too you know, dramatic, but it's about that. For every problem that was external, I would add in like 10-fold, 100-fold. And to me, whenever I hear the word mental toughness, that's what I envision. I envision literally beating yourself up to the point where you hate yourself, so that you keep going and doing the thing that you think is this arbitrary, or doing this big goal that really is some arbitrary goal that is going to bring you no satisfaction ultimately, because once you reach it, because you're not happy with yourself, because you're not at peace, because you're not embracing all the ups and downs and the vulnerabilities of the human experience, you're not going to enjoy anyway, because you're going to be like, it's not enough. Now what's the next goal? How's that horizon? Where's the horizon? Oh, the sun's set. Now I can't see where I was going. I got to go to another horizon. It's like fascinating. And yet so many people are touting this concept around mental toughness. And I'm like, no, let's do mental discipline. Let's squash that that internal critic. Let's be objective about our, what we want to achieve and what we want to do and how we want to show up. But let's not add in, the hooks onto the jab crosses that are already coming at us. There we go. A little compassionate curiosity. As I say in my book called Take Back Your Weekend. Stress less, do more, be happier. If you don't have a copy of that yet, please do get a copy of that. And don't forget, if you already have a copy of it, there is an online program that goes with it. So definitely there. And as this person said to me, she said, I bought your book and I didn't hear from you via email. And I'm like, that's because I haven't set up any email sequences to follow up with people. And she's like, you might want to do that. I'm like, so now mental toughness is do that, right? And now I'm not like that. I don't have the hate or the anger at myself for being stupid and not doing that before. No, it's just like, okay, great. Put it in the task circle. Let's make it happen. Figure out the piece of the puzzle to get it going. It's a balancing act. When I play, but I used to be the mental toughness girl and I beat up on myself. Oh my God. We'll talk about that another time. Oh, maybe we'll do one that's called the internal messenger of bullshit and your inner critic. That'll be one of our resilience resets. And of course, how this relates to resilience, because that's so important for the resilience reset, is I think it's harder, part of it's you got to push through the obstacles, absolutely. And when you come from that place of mental toughness, I think it can make it to be objective on how we're moving forward. I think it can be harder to absorb failure. Like mental toughness, if you're like, I gotta go, there's such a judgment if you don't succeed. And that would happen to him. Like if he failed, he was down and out, okay, I gotta keep going. Now he was very good at just, okay, I gotta go, learning from the failure for sure. But I don't know if all of us have that in us. I think failure can shut people. And if you're going through the journey from a mental toughness perspective, you are being driven through anger and judgment. If you don't make it, you're weak, can't succeed, etc. Then if you do fail, it's really easy to beat yourself, really angry with yourself. Yeah. All right, folks, this has been the Resilience Reset. Thank you for being here. And until next time, may you stress less, do more, and be happier. See you tomorrow.